Welcome to the In Shape Fitness Show. I'm Coach Kim. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's podcast is called Invention of the Treadmill and Cardio Workouts. Most of our podcasts are actual workout sessions. We're going to do a little less moving around today and talk a little more about the treadmill itself. Is it one of modern man's greatest fitness inventions? And of course, there have been so many of them. It's almost countless to name the different pieces of personal and gym-based equipment that the fitness industry has come up with over the last several decades. But is the treadmill one of these really amazing inventions, or do these big companies have a lot of us consumers completely fooled by their significance or their importance? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the treadmill, the notion of a cardio workout, and I'm going to offer you, of course, some tips. Hopefully, you'll get up and get moving a little bit, even if it's just for some postural and balance work, some deep breathing, and some thoughts about the strength of your body on the right side versus the left side. So let's actually start with just a couple of deep breaths, because I'm going to start talking about the treadmill. And I love this story. I just started editing my draft of a book that I've written called Darwin on the Treadmill. And it's kind of a fitness anthropology book, chronicling a lot of narratives, a lot of stories about recreation, sport, and vanity in our human history, but without the notion of the gym-based sort of once or twice a week workout that many seem to have ingrained so deeply in their minds that they put these workouts on their schedules. Parents get babysitters in order to go to the gym. Life completely stops if you don't get these, significant anchor workouts into your schedule every week. And hey, it's not working, right? Our health outcomes are not actually improving. Generally speaking, as a society, we are reaching the point where we might be, at the adults in our sort of professional adults in our generations right now, maybe living shorter lives, or at least lives with lower qualities of life than those of our parents. And there's a really serious changes that are happening in our own, like before our very eyes. So let's get started with a quick postural systems check. And even if you're sitting, you don't have to stand up, but if you're sitting, just take a couple of seconds to think about your breath and think about your posture, and just make the adjustments that you need to make. If you listen in to our podcast workouts, we always start with a posture systems check, and that is the opportunity that you have to think about the plumb line, which is an invisible line that runs from your head through the side of your head, kind of down the side of your face, next to your ears, and then through your shoulders, because your ears and your shoulders should line up. That forward head movement or position that you might feel you have, or you probably do have, but you don't necessarily feel it, is because of all of our devices, because of the steering wheel, because of our keyboards and our desk positions. And so you want to get your head back and then open up your chest. Make sure that your shoulders are back, because when your shoulders are rounded forward and you're pulling on your upper back, that causes pressure and strain in the back, but it also collapses the chest and impedes your ability to efficiently respirate. That is really important. So take those deep breaths in through your nose as you're thinking about your body parts, and exhale through your mouth. So smell the air around you through your nose, and then bellow the carbon dioxide. One of my favorite words to say, bellow the carbon dioxide out through your lungs, using that diaphragm, activating the tissues in your thoracic cavity, right? You want to make sure that you're breathing deeply, really reaching in deeply to the lung capacity that you have, in order to make sure that you are able to maximize the gas exchanges between the oxygen and the carbon dioxide and all the other things that are coming in and going out of your body. Okay, now think about your tummy muscles real fast and squeeze them. Pull in with your belly button, in and back and up. And then make sure that if you are standing, you want to make sure that you tucked in your tailbone a little bit. You don't want to stick out your butt. And hey, girls, this is a really good time for Kegels. If you are ever sitting in the car, if you drive, or if you're standing on the subway like I do in Manhattan, or if you are standing in line at the grocery store, make sure that when you are still, you think about the position of your body. And if you're thinking about the position of your body and you're thinking about the quality of your breath, go ahead and throw in those Kegels in the mix. It's nothing, no better time to do them than right now. The pelvic floor exercises, because the pelvic floor muscle, this is not just something that old ladies need to do because they don't want to develop incontinence, or pregnant ladies need to do because they develop incontinence because of the relaxing of soft tissues during childbearing years. But all women and men actually have this hammock-like structure that lies at the bottom of the pelvic floor. So if you have ever looked at a human skeleton, and it's worth doing this if you don't understand how your body works, look at the way that the bottom of the gap between your legs, the way it works from a soft tissue perspective. You've got that opening between the pelvic side, either pelvic side, that has to connect down through the tibia, the femur at the top of your leg. And there's the way that all of the vital organs stay inside of your body isn't because there's bone just preventing them from falling out. You have soft tissues that have to be able to constrict and to flow correctly. And that hammock-like soft tissue, the muscle, and then the soft tissues that connect it to the bones around the pelvic structure around it, are weakened when you are getting older, and when you do have a pregnancy, but also when you have too much body mass to support, particularly when there's a lot of abdominal and sort of trunk cavity excess body composition. So you want to make sure that Kegels are really valuable. So back to the cardio stuff. I've gotten off onto a tangent here, but I do want to talk about treadmills today because I hate them. You probably know this about me. I've been doing podcasts now through the In Shape Fitness Show for several years, and you know that in the clients that I see in private, the work that I do with our online software program, and then just in general for my own life, for people that are around me, and this is regarding the book that I wrote, gym-based workouts, and the notion of having to use the equipment that these big companies have invented for us, which is great, is not sustainable for human history. Mark my words, if you don't already think it. We simply cannot afford, both from an environmental impact perspective and a financial impact perspective, and then lastly, and maybe most importantly, from a health perspective, the idea of going to a place a couple times a week, sweating it out on a machine, leaving that place, and then going back to regular life. We are going to hit that rock bottom, that sort of, point where there is no return in terms of the ability for us to sustain a high quality of life without interventions when we rely on this sort of external consumer experience for exercise. We have got to figure out ways to fit these things into our life. And so treadmills, though they were invented, in reality, they were invented for the use of the movement of water, right? The milling of grains and the bellowing of air. Records of antiquity highlight the use of four-legged animals actually moving in circular motions to power early industrial activities like the milling of grains. In fact, if you go over to Mount Vernon, which is, first president of the United States, George Washington's home in Virginia, you can see this really fascinating, it's just a phenomenally advanced system where he had a circular mill. I think it was for rye, because he owned a distillery, and this was how he had horses that would trot, I guess, around in a circle to mill grains. And that's sort of an early concept of where the circular motion would power industrial activities. And lots of designs were used, including one you might actually see in a hamster cage, which is kind of an interesting, deleterious way we describe sometimes jogging around a track or even jogging on a treadmill, how it is kind of like a hamster running on one of those hamster wheels. A rudimentary version of a human treadmill was invented in the early 19th century as a means for the punishment of prisoners. And that is correct. One of the treadmill's first uses was actually to torture people. It's true. These early human treadmills, they were conceived by an English engineer who observed that the idle existence of prisoners was not necessarily a good way to pass the time. The engineer's father had been a miller, hence his connection to the contraption, and the resulting treadmill was used for decades to slowly punish prisoners. So they were also used to generate power. And of course, now we know, and you know, all the iterations that we've seen over the years, we have gotten to the point where you can pull these things into your homes. They can fold down and shove underneath, sort of roll up underneath a bed, various other components. But the treadmill's invention and the use of it in terms of consumer fitness, as proliferated as it is now, has not been that recent. It's only been in the last 100 years when the big box gyms really started taking off. I think back to Bally's and the whole idea of going in, getting on a cardio machine for 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever, and then having a weight machine circuit that you went to, and then you might finish off with another round of cardio. All very interesting. But if you think about the way that you develop a routine or a lifestyle rather, of sustainable exercise, the notion of, again, picking your life up and going to a location. Most people can't afford a treadmill in their home, but for those that do, even the notion of, I guess you could turn on the television and potentially check out the news and or your favorite television show, which of course is what people do in gyms now, to get in a session on these machines. But you're not going to change your body composition profile unless you make the movement in your life a regular part of life, not sort of a separate kind of parallel existence that you share with people that you might see in a gym facility. So we talk about this at InShape Fitness all the time because the notion of cardio workouts is something that people largely view as either running or swimming, or not so much swimming. So few people really swim very much these days, but running or biking, or the elliptical machine. Oh my goodness, I won't even get started with the notion of the damage that is done with the elliptical machines. But the rowing machine, or the recumbent bike, or the Stairmaster, those are a couple of other cardio machines, and that if you are in your home and you're trying to build a sustainable exercise regimen, how you can do that without the sort of notion of a separate sort of cardio workout. And I am a runner. I have been coaching New York City marathon runners for many years. I've completed 7 marathons of my own, and I have coached at least that many as well. And I really enjoy pitter-pattering, and I mean, not super fast. I'm not a super fast runner, but I really enjoy pitter-pattering through town where I live, or when I vacation through towns where I'm visiting, as a way to see things and see things really, really well and up close. But that is hard on the body. So what you want to figure out for yourself is how you can get cardiovascular fitness maybe into a routine that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get on a cardio machine. And a really good example of this is the muscle maintenance podcast that I did last week called The Burpee Sandwich. And the the reason that it's a great way to sort of slowly incorporate some cardio fitness into your exercise regimen is because cardiovascular fitness really has to do with an elevated heart rate. That is the endurance part of it, which is sustaining that higher level of cardiovascular exercise over a period of time, is something that you probably want to think about depending on what your goals are. As far as, being out for sustaining your elevated heart rate over 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. If you're a marathon runner, you've got to do it over many hours. But to get up and have something sustainable for your lifestyle, to be able to move up and down and move the body in multiple directions using multiple body parts will elevate your heart rate. And if you start moving and stay moving for a period of time of, say, 12 to 15, 20 minutes, you will have that cardio part checked off of your list. You don't need to isolate it in a particular way on a machine, such as a treadmill or an elliptical machine or whatever. So the burpee is a really great way to do that because it's a relatively simple, it's a pretty safe exercise, even for people that have orthopedic issues. You just have to make sure you modify it. If you are, for example, looking to ensure that you don't torque your shoulders or cause any sort of pain and fatigue in your wrists, you probably want to make sure that when you get down on the floor, you lower down to your elbows, lower down to your knees, and don't spend a lot of time sort of in the squatted position where you are pushing your knees past the tips of your toes. There are all kinds of different modifications that you can do in terms of a burpee. The other thing that you can do is to elevate your arms up over the level of your heart, whether you're extending your arms out to the sides or elevating them up over your head. A really simple thing that you can do is something we call a standing bicycle crunch. And that means that you basically stand up really tall, make an X with your body so your arms are up and out, your legs are about double shoulder width apart, and then you bring your left arm down and across your body as you bring your right knee up and across the body, and squeeze your tummy muscles and then stretch back out. And then do the same thing with the opposite side with your right elbow and your left knee. So you are pushing up against gravity, both with your knee and with your arms, and you are keeping your body fully extended and open, which means that you're going to elevate your heart rate. Another thing that you can do is to get down on the floor and simply move into downward facing dog, from downward facing dog into upward facing dog. That will elevate your heart rate a little bit. Downward dog squats will elevate your heart rate a little bit. There are lots of ways for you to, once you're on the floor, you're on all fours. Heck, you can crawl on the floor like a toddler and elevate your heart rate. I was actually doing that over the weekend with a friend's kid. No joking aside, and I'm a pretty fit person, and as I was crawling down the floor, I don't know why I'm all of a sudden so hoarse. As I was crawling around on the floor, I realized, oh my gosh, my heart rate is stressed up a little bit. That's kind of cool. Climbing is a really great way to elevate your heart rate. So there are a lot of sustainable ways to incorporate elevated heart movements into your life without having to use one of these machines. The other thing that's really important, and we're coming up on 19 minutes here, so I want to make sure that I'm finished with 20 minutes, so I want to end with this. When you have been told that you need to spend 20 minutes on a treadmill or 30 minutes on a treadmill or some other cardio machine, don't believe it in terms of health benefits. Now, you of course need to believe it in terms of training for an event. Again, I am a marathon trainer. I have trained people for half marathons, for 5Ks, for 10Ks, for marathons. The only thing I haven't trained people for is for ultras. Something I'll maybe do a little bit later in my life. But that's the thing. If you are looking for a distance or for an endurance that are related to an event that is going to keep you out and moving for a particular time, that's one thing. But if you're training your body just for fitness benefits, elevate your heart rate for, as I recommend to everyone, a 5 to 10 minute routine as part of the morning ritual every single day. And I do this for myself, whether I'm getting up and going to see clients or taking my kid to school, or waking up and about to go on a 3-hour training run with people for the marathon. I get up and I have a regimen that I do every single day. And so that elevates my heart rate a little bit, and it counts, because if you know that the doctor recommendation for having a moderate level of exercise, which means that you are boosting your cardiovascular output, elevating your heart rate over a period of time, and it's about 150 minutes per week, you can accumulate that throughout your day and into the week. You don't have to do all of that work in one sitting or in a couple of sittings over the course of a week. So I'm Coach Kim from InShape Fitness. If you have any questions for me or my team about your cardio routines or lack thereof, please get in touch with us at bodybyInShape.com. And we will be back next week with another new episode of the InShape Fitness Show. Have a great day.